A low mist clings to the frostbitten earth. It swirls like breath held too long, curling around moss-slick stones and the splintered roots of oaks that have stood longer than names remember. The wind is slow and wet, a funeral hymn murmured by unseen lips. Hoofs strike the wooden bridge with rhythmic dread, each clatter echoing like a drumbeat to judgment. The bridge is narrow, bowed with age, its slats dark with rain and rot, whispering beneath the weight of horses trained not to flinch. Beyond the bridge, a falcon cries. Its scream slices through the hush like torn linen. Atop the keep, it waits, feathers ruffled by dawn's breath, tethered by a leather cord too short for escape. The bird does not know freedom, only the illusion of flight. Much like the people below. The castle stands silent in the wet morning, its banners limp, its towers blind. Inside, a fire crackles low. Not for warmth. Not for welcome. It is ceremonial now, like the lord it serves. He sits near it, boots extended just far enough to feel the heat on his soles, but not enough to seem needy. His cloak is deep velvet, dyed crimson with cochineal and lined with the fur of a white fox taken in winter, a gift from a northern baron who died before the spring thaw. His goblet waits, already filled. He does not touch it yet. Instead, he listens. Below, the square churns with feet in mud, skirts damp to the hem, hands raw from the cold. A trial is underway, though the outcome was sealed long before the sun rose. A woman stands in the center, thin and veiled, though not from modesty. Her eyes are downcast. Not from shame, but from knowledge. She knows who gave her the bread. She knows he will not speak now. The villagers do not look at her. They look at the steps, at the wooden platform slick with dew. They look at anything else. Even her husband, standing 3 rows back, stares at the frost hardening in the corners of his beard. Inside the hall, the lord shifts slightly. His chair groans beneath its own carved weight, lions, vines, and beneath the armrest, the tiny etched form of a woman kneeling before a crown. The clerk beside him unrolls a parchment. His voice is soft, rehearsed, without inflection. The words accuse, condemn, erase. No one speaks of how she nursed the Lord's son when the wet nurse died in childbirth. No one names the guards who've taken more from her than grain. No one questions why her youngest child now bears the same blue eyes as the man who drinks silently from a goblet shaped like a bleeding heart. In the back, a boy watches. No older than 12. Ink stains his fingers. He clutches a roll of parchment and 2 sharpened quills. His breath fogs as he exhales slowly. He is not supposed to think. He is supposed to record. But he watches. He sees the way the servant opens the shutter at precisely the right moment, letting sunlight strike the woman's face like divine theater. The crowd squints. Some see guilt. Others see blinding truth. Most see nothing at all, only what they're meant to. The bells toll. Noon. A rope is brought forth. She does not struggle. And no one speaks. In the hall, the goblet rises. The Lord drinks, slow and deliberate, as though tasting something rare. The wine is spiced with clove and cinnamon, steeped in a ritual older than laws. He savors it as he savors silence, not just the absence of noise, but the weight of obedience. Silence, after all, is the true foundation of power. More than walls, more than swords. And yet even silence breaks. Later, as dusk creeps in through the arrow slits, the boy with the quill is summoned. The Lord gestures, and he steps forward, head bowed. The clerk hands him a fresh sheet. The verdict must be entered into the castle's chronicles, not as it was lived, but as it must be remembered. Thief, unrepentant, justice served, order restored. He writes the words as taught, but the ink pools where his hand shakes. Outside, the villagers have returned to their homes. Fires are lit. Bread is broken. The day is buried in routine. But something lingers in the air. Not grief, not rage. Something quieter. A stillness too complete. The kind of stillness that comes before a storm remembered in blood. That night, the Lord dines in his private chamber. Boar. Rosemary. A wine from Gascony. The lady of the house joins him, silent as always. She lifts her knife and slices meat from the bone. Her hands are steady now, but her eyes do not rise. Once she tried to ask. Once she tried to act. Now she watches shadows on the wall and pretends they do not resemble the girl from the square. He speaks of land disputes. Of rumors from the coast. Of the boy's penmanship. She nods. A knock at the door. The steward enters, whispers a message. The reeve of the village reports growing discontent. Too many hungry. Too much snow. Too few cattle survived the last frost. The Lord sighs. Raise the tithe? But my Lord raise it. And that is the end of the matter. In the scriptorium, the boy lights a candle and continues to copy letters he does not believe in. In the servants' quarters, someone whispers a name. Not the woman's, her name is already forbidden, but the name of the child she left behind. Outside the keep, the falcon stirs. It cries again, a long, aching sound that no longer resembles a bird. The rope around its leg chafes raw. And in the forest, far beyond the village, where the mist hangs heavy and the trees lean in as if listening, a child walks alone, carrying a loaf hidden in his coat and a secret burning behind his eyes. Tomorrow, the snow will fall harder. The bells will ring for vespers. The bread will run out. And somewhere, the silence will finally speak. It begins with smoke. Sweet at first, like honeyed herbs burning over oakwood, but beneath it, something bitter lingers. A sharpness that clings to the back of the throat as if the air itself remembers what was done here. Inside the chapel, the world grows dim. The stone walls sweat with cold, but the incense suffocates the chill, curling into the mouths of gargoyles carved centuries ago. They grin through it, hollow-eyed, bearing witness as they always have. A priest mutters in broken Latin, his voice barely rising above a whisper. His hands tremble, not from reverence, but from knowledge. He recites names not meant to be spoken, sins not meant to be cleansed. A silver censer swings from his grip, wide, pendulous arcs, painting halos in smoke that never blesses, only hides. Beneath his feet, the flagstones are stained. Not with blood, that would be too honest, but with wax, wine, and the weight of what cannot be named. The Lord kneels in front of him. Robes of sable velvet pool around him like spilled shadow. His head is bowed, but not in guilt. He does not pray. He performs. This is theater. A ritual of absolution bought with coin and silence. The boys who serve the priest avert their eyes. Their cassocks are threadbare. Their knees ache from stone. They smell of ash and fear. The ledger lies open on the altar. Names inked in crimson, scratched through in charcoal. The Lord's gold ensures that none of the names will be remembered. Not the foreign knight found drowned in a dry well. Not the midwife summoned for a labor that never bore a child. Not the steward who disappeared after speaking too freely in the wine hall. All sins erased not from heaven but from history. Outside, the digging continues. The well is nearly finished. But there is no rope, no bucket. The workers know better than to ask what it will draw. They dig because they are told to dig. And because men who question things in this place tend to vanish. Like breath on a cold morning. Every stone of this keep is a lie carved in granite. A tower raised from the bones of another's ruin. A hall lined with tapestries that boast of lineage but conceal rot beneath. The family crest, once a tree, now bears a raven, wings spread, eyes red. A symbol of endurance, yes, but also of hunger. Ravens do not build. They wait. They feed. Tonight, the Lord feasts. Meat is served glistening with fat. The dogs whine beneath the tables. The fire roars in the hearth. Goblets clink, laughter rolls, but it echoes strangely. As though the walls are not laughing with them, but laughing at them. A servant approaches the table, his gait uneven. A boy once, now bent, brittle, and silent. He carries the wine with both hands, careful not to spill. Once he dreamed of forging blades beside his father's forge. Now his fingers twitch at the memory of the lash. He does not look up. He has learned, the higher you look, the more it hurts to fall. Across the hall, the Lord raises a toast. He speaks of strength, of legacy, of God's favor. But the flicker of his daughter's eyes betrays the truth. She sits, pale and unmoving, her spoon untouched. Her dress is blue, the color of mourning in the eastern provinces. She trails one hand across the edge of the table, then lets it drop. She listens to the words but hears none of them. Somewhere deep inside her, beneath the silks, the lessons, the duty, something knocks, faint but steady, like a memory scratching behind stone. Later that night, she walks the corridor barefoot. The floor is cold. Each step echoes. She does not flinch. Her hand brushes the wall as she walks, counting ridges, cracks, gaps in the mortar. Her skin remembers what her mind cannot. Past the chapel door. Past the nursery that has not held a child in 5 winters. And then there it is. A door that should not be there. Narrow. Oak. Bound in iron. It was walled over long ago. She knows this or thinks she does. But here it stands. Silent. Waiting. Her breath stills. Her hand rises, fingers trembling now. They hover over the latch. But she does not touch it. Not yet. From below, the cock crows. Not the sound of mourning, but of betrayal remembered, of warnings ignored. She turns and walks back to her chamber, her steps quicker now, her breath shallow. She does not look back, but the door remains. Behind it, something stirs. In the stable, a boy tells a story to the horses. Whispers of a hidden room beneath the east tower, of contracts signed in blood, sealed with a raven's mark, of voices that speak only after dark. He does not know if it is true, but he saw the black wax once. He saw the scroll burned before anyone could read it. And he remembers the girl who vanished after asking too many questions. She used to feed the doves. Now the doves are gone. By dawn, the well is complete. It stands like a wound in the earth. The stones are fresh, the edges clean. But no one comes to bless it. No one brings a cup. It waits empty. The priest wakes with blood on his lip. A nosebleed, he tells the acolytes. Dry air, he claims. But his dreams were not dry. They were thick, red, wet with screaming. The Lord sleeps soundly. He dreams of empire, of banners bearing his name, of towers that scrape the clouds. But he does not hear the whisper in the stones beneath him, a voice too old for language, too patient for fear. In the east, storm clouds gather. The birds fly lower now, and the servants light fewer candles at night. Not from thrift, from dread. Because somewhere in this keep, behind the laughter, behind the hymns, beneath the new stone and the old lies, something has been awakened. It does not sleep, and soon it will be hungry. A single candle burns in a narrow window slit, its flame leaning east, pushed by a wind too tired to howl. The wax pools like tears at its base, slow and silent, unseen by the man hunched beneath it. He does not shiver, but his hand shakes. The quill in his fingers dances like a leaf in a storm, and still he writes. Not a decree, a deletion, a sentence that will never be spoken aloud. Words inked to unmake what was promised. A tithe redoubled, a right revoked, a law reversed, not by sword, but by pen. The steward knows what this means. He was born in that village. He kissed the wheat before the harvest. He drank from the stream now poisoned by frost. And now he signs their hunger into permanence. A single line, a red seal, a silence that will taste of ash. Outside, the fields lie wounded. The wheat never broke the soil this year. The barley turned black before the blade touched it. The orchard hangs bare, not picked, but abandoned. Frost came early. The cattle bellies swelled with sickness. Children cough blood behind closed doors. But the manor is warm. Inside, logs spit in the hearth. Platters steam. A roast glistens in the center of the hall, its juices dripping onto silver too bright for this world. The table groans beneath venison, pheasant, figs steeped in honey from the south. A jester spins, bells on his cap barely jingling. His voice cracks on the final verse. No one laughs. The Lord watches him with the stillness of a hunting hawk, unmoving, unblinking. And across the hall, a knight leans too close to the lady of the house. The Lord sees. He sees everything. Not a flicker of it touches his face. But the hand resting on his goblet tightens. There are no accidents here. Only tests. Loyalty is not assumed. It is watched, measured, punished. And all of it, the merriment, the mirth, the music, is shadow play. A mask draped over rot. Beneath this pageant of civility, the dungeon waits. It is always waiting. The stones sweat. The torchlight barely holds. There is a stink that lives in the walls, mildew, blood, and old regret. Rats scurry along beams, bold in their familiarity. In the farthest cell, a man lies curled, whispering prayers in a language half forgotten. He is not a heretic. He is not a traitor. He is a clerk. Or was. He read too well. Spoke too clearly. Asked why the taxes doubled when the yield halved. Asked why the bishop's letters were copied twice, once for the archives, once for the fire. He was arrested during Vespers. No resistance, no trial. Now his tongue is swollen from thirst. His nails bleed from clawing the stone. He speaks not to God, but to memory, hoping someone will remember he existed. That his knowing mattered. But he is nameless now. A liability rewritten into madness. And above him, the steward climbs the stairs, his robes damp from the cold, the sealed parchment tucked into his sleeve. He delivers the news. The prisoner has gone mad. The Lord nods. A sip of wine. Convenient. At Vespers, the chapel fills. The stained glass glows as the sun lowers, casting holy fire upon the gathered. Blue and red dance across the faces of knights and maids, merchants and murderers, all cloaked in the same hymns. The priest preaches mercy. But beneath the altar, coins pass quietly, wrapped in cloth, exchanged without eye contact. Mercy, it seems, has a price. And here, forgiveness is taxed like bread. The Lord kneels beside his wife. His head bowed, his back straight. Portrait of virtue. But beside him, the lady breathes slowly. Not from prayer, but restraint. Her eyes never close. Her lips never move. She remembers what this place has taken. Not her father, that was war. Not her dowry, that was custom. It took her name, her song, her language. She speaks in the court's tongue now, sleeps in the Lord's bed, wears his child on her face. But she has not forgotten the chapel where her mother once sang, now shuttered and silent beyond the marshes. She remembers each vow broken in the name of alliance. When the priest says, Amen, she does not reply. Behind the chapel, a corridor winds through the stone. Narrow, hidden, rarely walked. But tonight, footsteps echo. A boy walks it alone. His hair is dark, his mouth silent, but his eyes, the same steel blue as the man in the hall, burn with a hunger too old for his age. He listens. He always listens. The servants call him the shadowling, the bastard, the mistake. But he is not a mistake. He is memory wearing skin. He has learned that truth wears masks. That power does not roar, it whispers. Behind curtains. Behind veils. Behind scripture. He knows who his mother was, or what they called her. Kitchen girl. Passing comfort. Gone in the winter rains. He remembers none of her. But he remembers how the lady's hand shook the first time she saw him. Not from fear. From recognition. He has her eyes. And his father's silence. He crouches behind the chapel wall, listening to the murmurs of wealth and worship. He watches coins change hands. He watches the priest bless the blade that will be used tomorrow. He watches. And he remembers. Outside, the candle in the window finally gutters. The wind has taken it. In the village, smoke rises not from hearths, but from fields burned to prevent theft. In the dungeon, the prisoner hums a lullaby no one taught him. In the hall, the jester weeps after his final bow. And in the hidden corridor, the boy turns. The echo of the next chapter follows his footsteps. It does not shout. It whispers. It rains not with fury but with memory. A rhythm too measured to be natural, too mournful to ignore. Each drop taps against the leaded panes of the Lord's solar like a patient summons. Beyond the thick glass, clouds sag low over the hills. The wind carries no birdsong. Only the soft moan of ropes pulled taut and the creak of timber soaked in sorrow. On the battlements, a raven preens its wings. Black against black. It watches with the stillness of old things that know too much. Below, in the courtyard, men work in silence. They raise a wooden scaffold, hammer iron rings into place, tie knots that don't slip. This is not justice. This is theater, and every beam, every nail, every measured pace is part of a message written not in ink but in flesh. The man set to hang once wore the Lord's colors, rode beneath his banner, fought with honor in border skirmishes that earned no songs. But then he saw something. A seal altered, a name struck out, a signature forged not in haste but with intent. He did not raise his voice. He simply asked. And in this place asking is enough. Inside the manor, the Lord sharpens his blade. It is not for war. Its edge is ceremonial. A gift from a long-dead king whose crown passed through murder. The steel hums as it draws across the whetstone. Slow. Precise. The blade does not thirst. It remembers. The solar is dim but warm, thick with the scent of damp wool and beeswax polish. The walls are lined with tapestries, faded by candle smoke and time. They show battles won, lions roaring, saints bleeding. None of them are true. The Lord likes it that way. He does not raise his voice. He does not need to. His presence fills the space like incense, cloying, inescapable. The servants walk softer here. Their smiles crack too easily. They bow too often. There are stories, whispered behind linen screens and under the breath of firelight. The last steward, they say, refused to falsify a seal. He wrote the truth instead. The record was burned. The steward was not. At dinner, the hall flickers with candlelight. Tallow drips in soft rivulets down brass holders. The roast is carved in silence. Wine is poured with shaking hands. The Lord eats methodically as if rehearsing something. At the far end of the table, the lady of the house holds a goblet she never empties. Her hair is braided with silver threads. Her eyes do not rise from her plate. Once she sang in 5 tongues. Once she embroidered prayers into the hems of altar cloths. Now her hands tremble at the sound of footsteps behind her. She wears sleeves long enough to hide the truth, but not long enough to forget it. The hall is quiet, but never peaceful. Even the fire does not crackle here. It breathes a low, steady sound like the breath of something ancient and watching. Upstairs, the youngest son plays. He is no older than 6, and yet his world is already shadowed. In the nursery, he builds towers from bones, delicate ones, taken from snares set in the woods. Mice. Sparrows. A weasel once. He names each tower after knights he's heard of in bedtime tales. Then he knocks them down. One by one. Sir Edwin falls, he murmurs, smiling. And Sir Reginald burns. The nursemaid watches from the corner. Her face is blank. She never speaks unless spoken to. She knows her place. But when the boy turns away, she crosses herself beneath the shawl, quick, invisible, trembling. In this house, even innocence is taught how to kneel. Dawn comes slow. Gray light seeps in through the high windows like an apology. The raven is gone now, vanished into the storm clouds. But the gallows remain. The rope is coiled. The platform groans under its own expectation. The condemned is led out. Wrists bound. Lips bloodied from silence. He does not beg. He looks up, eyes tracing the tower where he once stood guard. He remembers laughter, a flag in the wind, a time before he knew what he was not meant to know. The crowd is small, selected, controlled. The priest recites a prayer that means nothing here. The clerk reads a sentence that was decided before the man was ever arrested. The Lord watches from his balcony, hands clasped, eyes heavy with nothing. The executioner steps forward. There is no drum, no trumpet, only the creak of leather boots and the whisper of a noose slipping into place. A breath, a drop, a silence so deep it becomes a presence. And then the body hangs still. Inside the manor, the lady presses her palms to her eyes. She does not weep. She learned long ago that tears feed him. The boy upstairs knocks over another tower. Sir William breaks, he says, smiling, and in the solar the Lord hums. It is a low, tuneless thing, a hymn from an old war sung by soldiers now dust. He sings softly as if to himself, but the walls hear. The stones, the beams, the floorboards, all of them remember. That night, no one speaks of what happened. The servants scrub the courtyard stone. The rope is burned. The body taken away under cover of dark. The official records will say the man died of fever in the dungeon. The seal will bear the bishop's mark. But beneath the chapel, in the secret corridor, the boy with the Lord's eyes listens. He has heard the whispers. He has seen the ink dry crooked on forged parchment. He has watched his brother build towers of bone. He has heard his mother's breath catch at the sound of boots. He does not speak. Not yet. But he remembers. And outside, beyond the manor, beyond the fields, in the village that no longer trusts the rain, someone digs a hole. Not for a grave. Not for a well. For something else. Something returning. The wind shifts. And the next chapter begins. A velvet curtain moves without sound, slow as breath in a dying throat. It sways, not from wind, but from something deeper, a presence slipping through corridors too narrow for sunlight. The air carries rosemary and cold stone, mingled like incense in an empty chapel. A scent left behind by ceremony. Or by sorrow. On the marble floor, beneath the faded sigil of the house carved into veined white, lies a ring. Not misplaced. Abandoned. A gold band set with black onyx, the crest of a lineage forged in siege, betrayal, and sacred oaths spoken with bloodied hands. To wear it is to claim inheritance. To leave it behind is to reject the weight of generations. The ring glows faintly in the half-light, untouched. Unclaimed. The feast begins anyway. Long tables are set. Silver goblets gleam. Musicians pluck gently at their lutes, though their fingers falter, missing chords they've played since youth. The meat is roasted, the trenchers carved. But no one eats freely. No one speaks above a murmur. The air is gone. Vanished. Not in battle nor rebellion, But in the night, a quiet disappearance without witness, without cry. His bed unrumpled. His chamber undisturbed. The only trace, a torn ribbon caught on a shutter hook, fluttering like a banner of surrender. Some say he fled. Ran from the marriage being arranged, a binding to a noble house feared even in song, whose daughters are known for their veils and their poisons. Others whisper darker things, that he was taken by the very men his father once used to silence rivals. Men who wear masks not for secrecy but for ritual. Men who do not speak once sent. No one dares ask the Baron. He lifts his goblet with a steady hand. The wine inside does not tremble, but his eyes never settle. They roam the corners, the rafters, the door left ajar too long. He speaks a toast, says the words of tradition, of harvests and loyalty, of unity. But beneath the table his boot taps once. Then twice. The room hears it, feels it. His enemies are fewer now, pared down by age, by treaty, by fear. But still, he sleeps with a dagger beneath the embroidered pillow. A relic from the campaign at Black Hollow, where he lost a brother and found a crown. He no longer swings a sword. Now he writes commands. Rulings, land disputes, conscription quotas. His empire lies not on a battlefield, but in sealed parchments and stamped agreements. His vaults hold little coin. His wealth is in names, the deeds he owns, the orchards that bloom under his banner, the villages that bow without ever having seen his face. And his daughters, each one married like currency, investments traded for silence or protection. Behind him, the steward stands motionless. He holds a scroll that will never be unrolled in this room. A list, names inked in steady hand. Peasants to be displaced to make room for vineyards. A clerk who corrected the Baron's Latin. A midwife who knew too much of bloodlines. The ink is dry. The orders are sealed. The removals will begin before dawn. Only two knew of this list when it was written. The Baron and his confessor. The confessor went blind 3 days later. No one asks why. In the chapel, a girl no older than 9 lights a candle. It flickers in the draught, trembling like her hands. She kneels alone, dress torn at the hem, hair uncombed, shoes too thin for the cold floor. Her prayer is short, but true. She prays not for herself, but for her brother. A stable boy, vanished 2 weeks before the heir. They shared bread in secret, told stories in the hayloft when the guards weren't looking. The last thing he gave her was a ribbon for her hair red, now faded to rust. Her voice is quiet, but it cuts the air like a blade. It is not the practiced recitation of a priest, nor the murmured guilt of a noble. It is grief, pure, blunt, holy. And in that small voice lives a truth this place fears, that the low-born remember, and they pray not just for comfort, but for justice. As her prayer ends, the bells begin to ring. They toll for mass. A slow rhythm, mournful rather than majestic. The sound fills the corridors, the kitchens, the halls. It calls the faithful, but no one moves. They all heard the same thing earlier, a heavy latch opening. A cage door swinging on rusted hinges. The falcon is gone. Its perch sits empty in the south tower. The meat left for it untouched. A single feather, gray-tipped, flecked with blood, lies beside the latch. The bird was trained for war, for hunting. It returns only when it wishes. In the high tower, the lady of the house draws the curtain. She does not eat, does not drink. She stands in silence, eyes fixed on the trees beyond the wall. Somewhere, beneath those branches, her son may be running. Or rotting. She does not know which hope is worse. She presses her palm to the glass until it fogs. The velvet curtain sways again. Not from wind, but from memory. She once stood in this same chamber, belly round with child, singing to no one in a language this house forbade. That tongue is gone now, buried beneath years of obedience. But the song still lives beneath her breath. The feast dwindles. The steward remains still. The scroll waits, heavy with intent. And far below, in the castle crypt, a candle flickers where none should burn. Next to a sarcophagus bearing a name scratched out long ago. Beside it, a figure kneels. Unseen. Unblessing the past. The rain begins again. And through the open cage window, a falcon screams. The echo finds no reply. Yet, the wind does not knock, it invades. It wails through the keep's forgotten hollows, through arrow slits and broken mortar joints, rattling the banners in their rusted iron clasps. It carries peat smoke from the hearth and something colder, the bitter, metallic scent of blood long dried but never cleaned. A scent no stone forgets. In the great hall, torches sputter in their sconces, their flames too small for the vastness they're meant to warm. Shadows cling to the corners. A boar's head crackles on the spit, glazed with honey and rosemary, its mouth fixed in a blackened snarl. The skin bubbles split open along the jaw. But no one carves. No one eats. The guests are late, not out of disrespect, but hesitation. They've heard what rides with the knight returning from the Holy Land, and it is not salvation. The Lord sits at the head of the table, ringed in silence. His goblet is full of spiced wine, untouched. His plate gleams beneath the smoke, bare. He wears a chain of office that rests heavily on his collarbone, each link cast from the iron of a mine where men dug until their lungs collapsed, until their names were scratched off rosters to make room for cheaper ones. The chain does not shine. It drags. He stares into the fire, though his thoughts are not in the flames. He knows the night brings no relic, no splinter of the cross, no tear-stained cloth of saints. What he brings instead are truths, bone-deep, sand-soaked, inconvenient, truths that bleed if you hold them too long. The Lord has spent decades mastering silence. Not the absence of sound, but the control of it, when to pause, when to speak, when to look away so others forget what they saw. But silence, once broken, cannot be mended. And tonight the crack begins. Below the hall, the kitchens are warm. They smell of broth and old wood, smoke and sweat. An old woman leans over a pot, grinding dried nettle and wild thyme. She works slowly, humming a tune so old it predates her memory. She served 5 lords, buried 2. She knows what hunger looks like when it wears velvet. She remembers when the cellar once stored casks of imported wine. Now it holds something heavier. 3 merchants. Shackled. Forgotten. Their ships disappeared last winter, or so the Lord says. But she remembers the night the guards carried the men down, half-conscious and bleeding. There was no storm that season. Just debts unpaid. She stirs the soup, but she will not taste it. Not tonight. In the stables, a boy sharpens iron. The rasp of file on shoe rings against the stone walls like a warning bell. He hums a lullaby, cracked, off-key, half-forgotten. His mother sang it before she was taken as tithe. The church needed a cook. The Lord needed favor. He does not understand politics. But he listens. He watches the guards drink too much before sunset. He counts the falcons that no longer return. He notes when the ledgers are burned and when the horses come back foaming, their riders missing. He is small, but his silence is loud, and he remembers everything. Then the doors open. A gust of cold floods the hall. Mud streaks the stone. The knight enters without flourish. His armor is dulled, dented, still crusted with sand from far-off deserts. His eyes are hollow, not from battle, but from what came after. He does not kneel in loyalty. He kneels in judgment. The goblet slips from the Lord's hand. It does not shatter, it rolls. Spins. Comes to rest beneath the table where it leaks red across the stone like a wound. The knight speaks no words. He holds up a pouch, cloth torn, stained with wax. A seal broken. Inside are letters. Not in Latin, but in the common tongue. Signed in the Lord's own hand. Promises made to foreign powers. Names traded for safe passage. Lives weighed like grain. The silence cracks. The cook stops stirring. The boy stops humming. And above it all, the bell rings. Not once, but thrice. The toll is old. Older than this castle, older than this family. Once it meant a vow. Then it meant a death. Now it means betrayal. The servants freeze mid-motion. The guards touch the hilts of their swords, unsure whether to draw or bow. But the Lord does not rise. He leans back. Smiles. Not in arrogance, but recognition. The moment he is feared has finally come, and he welcomes it. He has prepared for this, not with steel, but with ink. Not with warriors, but with witnesses. Everything has already been decided. In the rafters, a crossbow clicks into place. In the corridor, bootsteps echo, not one man, but many. The knight is not alone. But neither is the Lord. For every truth there is a counter-truth. For every accusation a record. For every rebellion a shadow. The boar's head collapses on the spit. Its jaw splits. Fat hisses in the fire. The flames rise. In the chapel, a candle snuffs itself out. Outside, the storm breaks. The wind screams louder now, but it cannot drown what is coming. Not justice. Not revenge. Something older. Something born when the first stone of this keep was laid in blood. The knight steps forward, but behind him others begin to enter. Not nobles, not clergy, but those forgotten. The steward who vanished, the sister who fled, the son whose name was never written in the book. And in the farthest tower a girl opens a window. She does not speak. She does not smile. But in her hand, she holds the falcon's feather. And in her eyes, the storm reflects. Somewhere below, a parchment burns. And the ink, for once, does not lie. The reckoning has begun. Snow falls like silence made visible. It drapes over the chapel roofs and cloaks the distant hills, muffling the world in a hush that feels almost holy. But beneath its purity lies forgetting, the kind that buries more than just soil, the kind that erases. Inside the monastery walls, the fire is more smoke than heat. It stutters against damp logs, spitting sparks that vanish before they land. A monk bends low over a table of worn oak, quill in hand, eyes dimmed not from age, but obedience. He copies the lines without pause. A charter of land. A baron's gift. A gesture of piety paid for in stolen blood. The village named in the margins no longer exists. No thatch, no bell, no grain in the earth. Only stones scattered like broken teeth and a name no lips speak. The ink smears across the vellum as he writes, but he does not correct it. He has learned that truth, once smudged, is easier to forget. In the private chapel across the estate, the baron walks alone. Each step echoes too loudly in the cold stone cloister. His boots are soft leather lined in fleece, but still he shivers. His hand clutches a rosary of jet-black beads, smooth from years of counting. One bead for each lie, for each treaty broken, each widow made by decree. He whispers no prayers. He simply counts. His power was not a birthright. It was built, patiently, ruthlessly, one betrayal layered atop another. When others swore fealty, he waited. When others gave mercy, he calculated. Every land grant, every banner hung, every stone carved with his crest, all of it bought in silence, forged in fear. His face is weathered now, but it is not age that hollows him. It is memory. Upstairs, the Baroness lies beneath heavy woolen blankets. She does not sleep. Her breath rattles like a wind through dying leaves. Her maid sits beside her, wiping the sweat from her brow with trembling hands. Her tears fall not from love, but guilt, for she poured the wine. But not the one that killed. The one that warned. The Baron knows. And that is why the healers do not come. Better a death than a rumor. Better grief than witness. Outside the barred window, a falcon perches on the sill, feathers laced with snow. It does not shiver. Its yellow eyes peer into the chamber with the patience of something ancient. The Baron sees it, and for a moment he is not here. He is years younger, seated at the same window, holding the hand of a girl with hair the color of ripened wheat. She was not his wife, but she was the only one who ever brought him something without a price. The falcon had been her gift. She disappeared one winter after a child was born. The Baron never spoke her name again, nor the child's. But names are not the only form of memory. Beneath the chapel, in a vault carved from damp earth and limestone, a boy lights a row of candles. The air smells of old stone, beeswax, and something colder, the scent of things left buried. He lights each wick with careful hands, though the names engraved above the bones mean nothing to him. Ancestors he was never taught to claim. Men who would never have claimed him. He is of noble blood, but not by marriage. His mother was a servant, or perhaps a secret. He was raised by neither. In this house he is not punished, but neither is he acknowledged. He has learned to live like a shadow, to speak softly, to enter rooms only when already forgotten. Yet tonight he watches the snow fall through the iron keyhole of the chapel door. He watches and he wonders. If snow can cover tracks, can it also cover truth? If enough time passes, will the earth forget who planted the seeds and who burned the fields? Upstairs, the Baron watches the falcon stretch its wings. Its talons scrape softly against the sill. Below, in the vault, the boy places a final candle at the foot of an unmarked tomb. It is smaller than the others. A child's. He doesn't know why, but his breath catches. As if the room itself remembers. As if something beneath the stones is waiting. The chapel bell rings. Not for a wedding. Not for a feast. Not even for a death. Just the hour. But it is enough. The falcon takes flight, disappearing into the white sky. And for the first time in years, the boy stands tall. He walks back up the narrow spiral steps, past the iron torches and dust-coated saints. He does not sneak. He does not flinch. The snow continues to fall. But it can no longer hide everything. The truth breathes. The forgotten stir. And the silence begins to crack. In the next room, the Baron whispers a name. Not to anyone. Just to the air. It is the girl's name. But no one hears him. Except perhaps the boy who paused outside his door. For now, nothing changes. No crown falls. No blade is drawn. But something has begun. Something inevitable. And beneath the snow, roots shift.